FIFA expanded the World Cup from 32 teams to 48 teams for 2026. The official reason was growth, more nations involved, more of the world represented, more football. What nobody fully predicted was what this expansion would actually do to the tournament itself, and what it has done is extraordinary. On one single day of the 2026 World Cup, all 4 matches ended in draws, the most in a single day of men's World Cup football since 1958. New Zealand came back twice to draw with Iran, Qatar held Switzerland, Bosnia held Canada. None of those results were supposed to happen, and they all happened on the same day. The biggest shock of the group stage was Cape Verde holding Spain to a 0-0 draw. A nation of just over 500,000 people in their first ever World Cup held the reigning European champions to a goalless draw. Spain had 27 shots. They had their best players. They had everything that should produce goals against a debutante nation. It produced nothing, because the expanded format did something nobody expected. It gave smaller nations a reason to defend for their lives in a way the old format never quite did. Here is why the format change matters more than people realize. In the old 32-team World Cup, a small nation facing a giant in the group stage knew that getting a point was a genuine achievement, but probably not enough to qualify. The math was brutal. In the new 48-team format, the top 2 teams from each group advance automatically, plus the 8 best third-place teams. That means a disciplined draw against a giant could be the exact result that puts a small nation in the knockout rounds. 1 point against Spain is now potentially a qualifying point. That changes everything about how small teams approach those games. The tactical consequence of this is massive. Every underdog at this World Cup is defending with a precision and organization that the old format never incentivized in quite the same way. They are not just trying to avoid embarrassment, they're trying to get a point that might actually matter. And that shift in mentality from survival to strategy is producing football that nobody predicted. Australia beating Turkey 2-0 was the most underrated upset of the tournament. Turkey were many people's dark horse pick to go deep. Australia simply outworked them. It is a reminder that being talented on paper counts for very little when a hungrier side turns up and refuses to give you a second on the ball. The expanded format has also changed the group of death. In a 32-team World Cup with 8 groups of 4, the group of death was inevitable. Too many good teams for too few spots. In a 48-team World Cup with 12 groups of 4, the best teams are more spread out. The group of death still exists, but it is less concentrated, which means more good teams survive the group stage, which means the knockout rounds are harder than they have ever been. The round of 32 is a genuinely terrifying prospect for any team that sleepwalked through their group. There is also something happening to the pace of the tournament that fans are only now starting to notice. 8 third-place teams will advance to the 2026 World Cup round of 32. That means teams going into their final group game with 1 point can still be playing knockout football depending on results elsewhere. The tension in the final group game match days is at a level the old format never produced across as many simultaneous matches. The critics of the expansion said it would dilute the quality, that group stage matches would be meaningless, that the gap between the best and worst teams would be embarrassing. None of that has happened. The gap between the best and worst teams still exists, but the smaller teams came prepared for it in a way previous World Cups never saw. They studied, they organized, they accepted what they could not change, and maximized what they could control. The 48-team World Cup is not perfect. Some matches have been one-sided. Some nations are clearly not ready for this level, but the experiment has produced something unexpected and extraordinary. It has produced a tournament where anyone can take a point from anyone on any given day, where a goalkeeper from Cape Verde becomes the most famous player on earth for 24 hours, where a nation of just over 500,000 people walks into a stadium against the reigning European champions and does not lose. That was not supposed to be possible. The format made it possible, and football will never be exactly the same again. The game has not changed. You have. Welcome to FIFASect.